Now we will move to the questions from the audience. I have a number of questions, and I'd like to ask uh, to direct them to the speakers. And if any of the speakers wants to add anything, they can freely let me know. Before the questions, I'd like to thank His Excellency, the head of the Board of Directors of TVET and EDEC, Dr. Ahmed Al-Isa and Dr. Hussam Zaman, and the team worked for their great efforts in organizing this conference, for choosing the elite of experts that we are having now. Thank you very much. The first question is for Dr. Ahmed Al-Fahid. Dr. Ahmed, here I have a number of questions. I will mention all of them and you can answer all of them. First, how the TVTC sector, how do you see your important role in shaping the skills of different levels of education, and uh, how do you help citizens get in the system of institutions? Another question: what is what is the driver for qualification? Is there a weakness in qualification, or are there new demands for more qualification? This can be a general question for all speakers, but I also mention it to you, Dr. Ahmed. How can we have self-assessment and external assessment? How can they go in line or hand by hand to achieve results? Self-assessment and external assessment. Dr. Ahmed, you can start answering now. Thank you very much, Doctor. And I'd like to thank those who asked the questions. First of all, I'd like to speak about the uh, World Economic Forum. They mentioned a lot of skills and a lot of jobs that will require new skills. And also the digitalization of the labor market. Labor market will be digitalized, and that's why there are jobs that will expire and there are new jobs that will emerge. So they talked about that there is a need for requalification in order to keep up with the new requirements of the labor market. Also related to the role of the corporation, of course, uh, if we have better training and vocational education early enough in the journey of the people, it will be better in terms of results. We have programs like Utqin. These programs are social and they're important. Saudi citizens, males and females, they can start enrolling to these programs from early ages. They are providing them with skills that they need. Also, in terms of Adri and others, we have different academies for children within these festivals in order to help students achieve their own skills, and we give them encouraging certificates if they learn some of these skills. We also want to enlist some of the workshops uh, within the curricula and schools in order to get students to know some information about some skills. These are some things that we do. But I'd like to confirm that also related to the skills required for the future. This is a difficult question to be answered now, but all countries work on skills forecasting because training and evaluation requires a lot of curricula and standards for qualification and the trainers programs. We need preparations, and forecasting the future skills is very important. And this will require us to have greater connects to different opportunities and different partnerships. We launched two technical colleges recently, and big companies in Saudi Arabia like Saudi telecommunication companies, Saudi advanced electronic systems, most of them like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, they are participating in the board of directors of these colleges. They know much about the future skills and the programs required for the future. So the standards that we need to enlist are important, and we receive them from them. These are some of the things that we are working on. Thank you, Your Excellency. I have some questions for Dr. Ahmed Zahrani, but it can be also answered by any of our speakers. What are the most important or required specializations for the labor market from 2020 to 2025? And what are the best paying jobs in this period? And The speaker is speaking English.
and how to enable their acquisition and evaluation within a unified framework that looks to the whole journey of the learner. Another question, I think it's duplicate question, the same question. So Ahmed, Dr. Ahmed, can you answer the questions?
شكرا معاليك. بالنسبة للسؤال الأول، ما هي أكثر التخصصات طلبا والمهن إلى عام 25؟
Thank you, Your Excellency. As for the most required jobs from 2020 to 2025, I think labor market is dynamic and specialization is important, but linking some kind of specialization to specific jobs will be misleading. Labor market focuses much on skills and performance more than the academic titling of specialization. But generally speaking, usually technical specializations like finance, telecommunication pay better salaries than other jobs. This is a generally speaking. Another question was related to the national consensus. I think that there is no need for national consensus. And this is what we depended on our strategy. So in order to give a full answer regarding the demand of the private sector related to the skills, but generally speaking, in our labor market strategy, we started an initiative that will get all the related parties together to have a look on the mechanism of training, the required skills according to the sectors and the jobs. Also, now we are working on the skill survey. We call it skill survey in cooperation with HRDF, Human Resources Development Fund, and the ETEC as well, regarding the skill survey and what we are required to prepare for the future. Also, the skill tag that we have in order to prepare for the labor market and what is required for the companies. We analyze a lot of the demands for jobs on LinkedIn and other platforms nationally and internationally, and we found that there is a huge growth in terms of the demand on skills of digitalization, problem solving, and creative thinking skills. These are new skills that are emerging, growing, and are being important, focusing on the skill and how to develop them, how to keep up with the change. This is a very important and considerable thing to find for an employee.
Could you please elaborate on the linkage between a framework of skills recognition and a framework of qualifications? What is the trend noticed regarding the role of skills in the qualification making? Are we moving toward distributed skills recognition leading to qualification recognition? Another question for you also. It seems that the development of NQFs is not the end of the story. It may be easy part to compare the implementation of NQFs. Would you please shed some lights in the implementation phase, particularly that ATEC is planning the implementation phase?
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, so as I said, we are providing a lot of support for the development implementation of NQF to many countries, to many developing countries. And we know the good practices of the NQF, but most of those practices are in the wealthy country, OECD member countries. And in the developing countries, I think many of our partner countries, I think they are still under the development. And we understand that this requires the broad consultation with various stakeholders will be needed. And also the very strong commitment, political commitment is necessary. And yes, I don't really have a clear answer, but this is still an ongoing process. And for example, one of my recent experience is I am the coordinator of the big TVET project in Uzbekistan. And the government has a kind of outline of the qualifications framework. but it has not yet completely implemented. And we are providing support for the capacity development on agricultural TVET. And we are trying to incorporate some new ideas to the agricultural sectors, like the use of big data, the use of drone, and also the use of the agriculture without using soil, like aquaponic, hydroponic, those kind of new technologies. And of course, there is an implication to the qualifications framework. So we are working with the international qualification expert and try to introduce some of these new ideas into the ongoing debate of the qualifications framework in the country of Uzbekistan. Yeah, I don't think I answered that question, but I think this is about what we are doing now. So again, I think the consultation with the broad stakeholders will be needed, and also the very strong commitment of the government will be needed from our point of view. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you. I think you answered it. And this is not my question. This is a viewer's question. So another question that directed to Mr. Williams. There is a tendency to move to the current traditional assessment practices into the digital space without many educational improvements. What's your experience in mitigating such risky tendency, if risky at all?
No, I think that's very real and a very good point. Thank you for the question. I think it's an improving space. I mean, as internet technologies and digital technologies have come into play with assessment, I think there was a tendency in the first few years to largely turn paper into pixels and kind of continue with some of the tried and true or reliable and valid assessment methods. But actually, as I think one of the points that I was trying to make in my remarks was that thankfully with the use of the technologies that we can actually get more direct access to where the skills and training action is taking place through capturing actual digital evidence of skill development and skill demonstration. So I think now it is becoming more real time, which is really important when we're talking about augmentation and small credentials or refresher type training, where we are able to use the technology just to do the small piece, because I think pre-digital things are necessarily a lot more large or less granular. So I think it is becoming a more iterative process, and there are cleverer uses of the digital technologies today than certainly there was previously.
Thank you. There's another question. I think it's directed for you also. Indeed, the Eportfolio has begun to make significant intrudes into validation, learning, and skills. However, there are many challenges, including understanding what portfolios present, how to create one, what to include. From your experience, how can we overcome these challenges? How can we shift the concept of telling what I learned to showing what I learned?
Yeah, thank you. And again, that's a problem that's shared. I think one of the things that we've seen is the development of a number of these kinds of e-portfolio systems, and whether or not one gets critical mass in the market overall, or whether it's something that's top-down led by government. So I think what's important is that the demand side, particularly the employer or the next employer, trusts the information. So, I think there's a real role for the private sector in here in terms of industry associations, etc. So when we look at things like skills passports and things that are recognized, that we don't end up confusing employers with a fragmentation of lots and lots of different kinds of portfolios, so that the employer doesn't necessarily have a clear understanding of the skills and outcomes that underpin that. So I think I wouldn't necessarily argue it has to be just one system. I think that's too. I don't think that provides enough diversity to meet the needs of different industries which have different drivers. But I think there's an industry by industry about how skills can be demonstrated electronically through portfolios in a way that, as I say, improves on just the old piece of paper qualification.
Thank you. I think we covered all the questions. There are only one question, and how the self-assessment and external assessment can work together. That's one question I'm not sure if we answered. And also I want to Dr. Patrick to comment to comment on any of the earlier questions.
Yeah, happy to. And I think just the question on what skills are needed in the future, I think digital skills, absolutely. And in Scotland, we're looking at Metaskills, which would include self-management, social intelligence, working with others, and innovation. So as picking up things like creativity and critical thinking. So we're starting to look at how can you embed them in qualifications. Digital is going to become pervasive, digital skills, but this idea of meta skills, working with others, managing yourself, and being innovative and creative, we think are softer skills that will become much more important.
Thank you. I have a question للمهندس محمد عسيري. فكرة المجالس القطاعية مميزة. هل هناك جهود لانطلاقها؟ ما الآثار الإيجابية المتوقعة على سوق العمل؟
في الحقيقة أنه يعني ربما
maybe the TVET is not the agency required for or responsible for regulation, but these are some of the things that the Ministry of Human Resources is working upon now. But when we have any kind of work in Saudi Arabia, and any kind of agencies can apply for the agencies and for the accreditation agencies, and this kind of application cannot be justification for delivering training or for accreditation and evaluation, but the idea of conformity between the needs of the labor market and the requirements for training will be happening, because these sectorial councils are important to us in Saudi Arabia, and it is not available now in an effective way. And we ask Allah the Almighty that it will be ready soon in order to cover a huge part of the work that we need in order to do our job the right way. Thank you.
How do the comprehensive internal and external evaluations of apprenticeship feedback into the decision making and implementation? Is there a regular process to adopt programs and policies based on evaluations?
Absolutely. So the point of doing the work is to feedback, and as I say, two things. One is to celebrate success, so identify what we're doing well, keep doing what you're doing well, and to identify areas for improvement. So for the foundation apprenticeships and the graduate apprenticeship programs, there was an extensive review of the pilots and regular feedback. And as I mentioned in my presentation, we're looking at ways of capturing that across the apprenticeship family in future, so that we can get almost real-time feedback from the apprentices themselves and feed that into the decision-making process.
Thank you. غطينا جميع الأسئلة. في نهاية اللقاء أود أن أتقدم بالشكر.
We covered all the questions, and at the end of this session, I'd like to thank all the speakers for their wonderful presentations and for the information that they have provided us with. I'd like also to thank His Excellency Dr. Ahmed Al-Isa, the head of the board of directors of the corporation, and Dr. Hussam Zaman, the president of the corporation. I'd like to thank all the team for this for the organization of the conference and the good choice of speakers and topics. Thank you very much, and I'd like to thank all those who participated with us, the audience, whether here or behind the screens. Thank you very much.